Hey there everybody, my name is Kat Bowser. I'm your resident fantasy therapist and welcome back to my channel. Those of you here for the first time, welcome. My name is Kat Bowser. I'm a licensed therapist. I'm also a writer working on my first two novels, one a standalone, one the start of a series. And on my channel I like to talk about what I consider to be the heart of writing. That's the characters. The heart of the characters is their psychology. So that's the angle I like to take with pretty much everything I talk about on my channel. So we're going to start at the top and we're just kind of go down and we'll just go from there. So at the very top of the map, you can see the very top of the world is in a caldera. And this is where the Natula live. This is a very icy, very foreboding place. There's not a lot of trees. Like you don't see any in here. There's a handful, but there's not that many. It's mainly brush and like open plains. They call this wide area the ice plains. And then you have the Queen's Palace up here. Now, it's a queen right now, but it changes every so often. It used to be that every 20 years, the society would essentially have a contest to determine who would be the next king or queen. But it has become a wee bit corrupted over the years, so now it's become more of the passed on to the next generation kind of royalty, for now. So the Queen's Palace is actually among some very large mountains, and it is carved, literally carved into the side of one. And actually behind the mountains, you can't see it here, but behind the mountains there are hot springs, which are about the only place here where you can grow crops. So the Queen has access to all these resources and she can divvy them up as she so chooses. If you'll go to the far right, you will see Aruda Lake, which is the biggest lake they have, and it's where they do a lot of their fishing. A lot of the animals like caribou and similar animals live around there. So that's where you're going to do most of your hunting. So this is really where a gathering of most of the villages happen. But the villages do move. They usually have two villages. They have one around the lake, and then they have one a little further off that they move to during what they call the thaw. During the freeze, they stick near the lake. During the thaw, they move away from it. And there is a section called Siren Pass, and it actually starts in the middle of the lake and then moves as it flows down out of the caldera and spills into the sea. And it's called Siren Pass because it is these two large pillars of ice. Like they look like almost ice cliffs that rise out of the lake, and there is a very narrow passage that goes through it. You can go around it, but the difficulty in going around it is that's where you hit a lot of reefs. There's a lot of rapids. It's very dangerous to go around it, so most people go through it. But going through it, there are sirens, which in my world are not things you want to meet. They are very carnivorous, dangerous creatures. So that is Siren Pass. And it, like I said, spills out of the caldera and into the sea. And this sea is called the Death's Sea. You'll also hear it called the Ice Sea or Arudan Sea, which literally translates to Sea of Death. So it's called this because it is a freezing cold sea. But because it's salt water, it's lingering at around 23, 25 degrees Fahrenheit. So very cold. So generally not a lot of people go out on this sea because even though there is life out there, you can go fishing. That's where a lot of the sirens live, and so it's very dangerous. So it's generally not considered worth the risk. Now, if we go along to the front of the caldera, we will see 3 large waterfalls. These are called the frozen waterfalls. And they are a green and blue shade, and they are literally waterfalls that are frozen solid. But these will eventually pass out of the caldera and down and become 3 main rivers that run through Balana Forest, which, as you see here, is very, very large. Almost the size of the entire continent. It spreads almost across the entire continent. And in here is where the Natuba live. They are spread throughout the forest. They have one ruler. Right now it's Queen Unana, but this does change. She is training her son to take over, but if her son is deemed inappropriate or not able to lead, they will choose another. So there are 3 main rivers that run through here: Natum, Joya, and Traya. And these help provide a lot of nourishment to the trees. There's lots of fruit trees in here. There's some land in here where they grow crops kind of sporadically throughout the forest, but it's a very densely packed forest with all kinds of different plants and animals. So lots of good hunting here, lots of good foods that grow. So pretty nice place to visit if you can get past the barrier. Now you'll see over to the far right, you'll see what we call the Sky Sight Mountains, and these form the barrier between the forest and the meadow. The meadow is typically to be avoided. There are some plants that grow there that you can gather to use for cooking, or in a lot of cases gather to poison dip your weapons. But the meadow is avoided because there's something weird about it, in that it absorbs all sound. So it is dead silent through the entire thing. And so not a lot of people go there because there are predators there that have learned how to function without sound. So unless you really know what you're doing, you should probably avoid this area. Now, if we're going to go down a little bit, we will hit the desert and the burnt plains, and they kind of merge together a little bit. So the only real difference is that in the burnt plains, you'll see a little bit more grassland, and in the desert, you'll see more sand and rock, but they do kind of merge together. Not a lot of water here. The water that is here, you can see a river just on the edge, and it actually flows red. They don't know why, it just does. I'm sure there's an explanation for it. So there's lots of different creatures that live here. You'll find sandfae, you'll find centaurs, you'll find the mamaru, which is a type of buffalo type creature. You'll see some unicorns here, not many, but lots of other just various type of creatures. There are a type of stonemen that live here, deep underground, but they don't usually come out and say hi to visitors. So those are the burnt plains. Now, if we're going to go over towards the west a little bit, we will hit Walstor, which is the main city of the Natusa. There are dens and little individual families scattered around, but those are not real cities. This is the only real major city, and that's where the defenders train, and it's where they have a lot of cropland and farmland. You'll see what's called the plains just below it, and it crosses over the river. This is where you will find a lot of grassland, and they actually grow a lot of grain here. So lots of Natusa scattered through here. Lots of other creatures too, but the Natusa kind of rule this area. And if you will go over to the west a little bit more, you will find Mystica Forest. Not generally a place you want to go. There is a swamp right smack in the middle of it, where most of the unicorns actually live. But you will also find various other fae and nymph and pretty much any mystical creature you can think of. It probably lives here at some point. Lots of dangerous animals in here, and not a lot of space to really draw a weapon. So generally not something that you want. You don't really want to go exploring here unless you have to. They do have some rare plants in here that are used as medicine. So that's usually the only reason people are going to come in here. Otherwise, they tend to avoid it. And if we go down way at the bottom, you will see what's called the Mountains of the Dragons, or sometimes called Dragon Mountains, depends on who you ask. This is where the Dragrim live underground. Their whole society is in underground caverns. They have not been above ground in centuries. So these mountains are very difficult. They're staggy, they're tall, not a lot of really clear paths. There's a lot of poisonous plants that grow here. It's very inhospitable. So there's not much known about it. There may be other creatures that live here, but nobody's really jumping out to find out. And last place before I jump to the islands, you will see a small canyon called Rainbow Chasm between on the very edge of the burnt plains in the desert. It's called this because it essentially is very deep. It's about Grand Canyon deep, and it has northern lights flickering in and out of it around sunset and sunrise. And there's also colored gems and colored rocks throughout it. No one can determine which they are. Nobody has ever ventured to the bottom of it, mainly because they don't see a reason to. They don't really see a reward for doing it, so no one really tries. There is some superstition about it, depending on who you ask. So people do go here to kind of just watch the lights, but not a lot of exploration going on. Okay, so now we're gonna jump to the islands. So if you go to the upper left, we have the Isle of Green Stones, which is in the Green Sea. This is where most of the stonemen live. They make their homes in the mountains there. There is a small forest on the island called Gem Forest. They call it that because of the colors of the trees. There's three main cities. There's the Lower Caverns, which is where Nali was born. There's the Realm of the King, which is where their ruler currently lives. And then there is Gem Edge, and that's where Nali's uncle Terran lives. So this island has lots of resources underground for mining. That's why they tend to stick around it. But they also make things, they do a lot of glass making, so there's lots of sand and minerals like that there. So they're not completely what I would call isolated, but because they are allies with the Natuba especially, but they kind of just keep to themselves. I mean, if you show up, they're not going to force you away there, but they're going to be cautious. If we go down a little bit, we're going to switch from the Green Sea to the White Sea. And it's called this because it is very foamy. It's very white. And in the White Sea, we have the White Isle. So this isle is considered cursed. It is also where the Natusa banish their Silmuks when essentially they decide that it's time for them to go. Everything on this island is white. The sand is white. The rocks are white. The plants are white. The water flows white. And they don't know why. So they kind of use it as an excuse to, it's basically an excuse for their bigotry, honestly. So nobody really goes to explore it. It's surrounded by whirlpools. A lot of the times, honestly, the Silmuks are just thrown overboard, and kind of it's up to you if you make it to the island. So no one really knows how many have actually made it there. There could be a whole civilization there. There could not. We don't know. At least not yet. And if we go down a little bit, we have the Isle of Bones, which is not just named that because of the shape of the island. It is named that because there are bones everywhere on this island. They literally they pop up. and nobody knows where they come from. Nobody knows how they appear there. So it's kind of considered to be kind of linked with the White Isle. Legend says they were once one island and they broke apart. So not a lot of people go here either. But there doesn't seem to be anything growing on it. People that have passed by it, they can't see anything that's growing on it. They literally see nothing but barren land. So doesn't seem to be any reason to really go explore it. And if we pass underneath, we enter the Dragon Sea, which is called that because this is where the dragons used to live. They used to inhabit the mountains of the dragon and this sea, but they have not been seen in centuries. So whether or not there's still dragons here is up for debate. Now, if we cross over, we are going to enter the Boiling Sea, called for a name, called for a reason, because it's always boiling. The sea here is never cooler than 100 degrees Fahrenheit, usually hotter than that. And they really don't know why. They assume it's some kind of magical anomaly, but they really don't know why. There's one island in the Boiling Sea, and that is called the Red Isle. And it's called that for a reason. And just like the White Isle, everything on here is red. There is a little more variation, like you'll see a little orange and a little yellow here and there, but mostly every plant that you see on here is red. It is also home to what they call the world serpent, or the world snake, depending on who you ask. This is a snake that is a mile long, seems to be intelligent, and seems to be poisonous, but also a constrictor. So not a lot of people rush in to check this out. There seems to be some evidence of a civilization here, but it's up for debate. It's one of those cases where it could be a current civilization, it could be evidence of a civilization centuries ago. They don't know. Some spunky defenders have gone here and explored, but as they put it, it's covered in jungle. It's so dense that you would need huge parties to explore the whole island. And so far, they've only really explored probably about 12% of it. So there's that. If you go upward, there is an area where the Boiling Sea meets the Death Sea. And there's actually a line of just straight steam that rises out of the ocean. And it's pretty intimidating, so most people don't like to go near it. Unknown if you can actually pass through it or if it would destroy your ship. They're not sure. But on the other side of that, for now, is the Floating Isle. And I say for now because this is the island that moves. It moves. Sometimes it's here. Sometimes it's in the Boiling Sea. Sometimes it's in the Green Sea. Sometimes it is even inland in the rivers, even though it should not be able to fit there, but it seems to split and like go lengthwise to fit, and then it disappears again. There have been people that have attempted to reach it, and per their explanation, when they get close to it, it moves. It changes course, and it almost seems to run from them. So there's some kind of magic going on there, but it's up for debate if it's good magic or bad magic. It is a very popular essential quest to see if you can catch it, see if you can catch the Floating Isle. One of the current theories is that if you do catch it, you won't be able to leave. So that dissuades some people. Some people say if you catch it, you'll fall right through it. So lots of legends around it, depending on who you ask. So you can talk to almost any culture in the world, and they will all know what the Floating Isle is when you ask them about it. They may all have different names for it, but they'll know what you're talking about. So that is just a really brief view of my world thus far. You guys will get to know each area a little more intently as my books come out. But there's a lot going on in this world, and it is not the only continent in this world, but it's the only one I'm going to show you guys for now. So I hope you guys found this interesting. As always, leave comments or suggestions below. I will get to them as soon as I can. If you want to be notified whenever I upload, make sure you subscribe and ring the bell so you'll get a notification whenever a new video drops. I try to upload every Sunday, every Wednesday. I will try to throw some extra videos in for you guys as well. And until next time, hope you guys stay safe and have a good one.